Well, it looks like the 1% are fighting back against Occupy Wall Street. Now, I don't think you can really call it a movement, but a Bloomberg report out this week does highlight what looks like a concerted effort by hedge funders, banking executives, and the like to craft their own message. Take, for example, the JP Morgan CEO telling people at an investors conference that acting like everyone who's been successful is bad, and because you're rich, you're bad. I don't understand it. Or John A. Allison, the fourth, a director of BB&P, saying, instead of an attack on the 1%, let's call it an attack on the very productive. So, all right, they've got their talking points out there, but the question is, who do they think is going to buy it? Joining me to discuss it is Peter Schiff, CEO of Euro-Pacific Capital. Peter, thanks so much for joining us tonight. And I guess I want to start, you went down to Occupy Wall Street, to Zuccotti Park. You had your little sign, I am the 1%. You said somebody's got to do it. And do you feel like you have some company now?
Well, of course, there are a lot of people in the 1%, but unfortunately, I think that particular Bloomberg story focused on the wrong portion of the 1%. They interviewed a lot of bankers, a lot of people who benefited from the Wall Street bailouts, and so they're giving the rest of us in the 1%, the 99% of the 1%, a bad name. And in that way, this story played right into the playbook of the Occupy Wall Street movement, because they're trying to paint everybody with this brush. They're trying to say that the 1% is getting all this bailout money and getting special tax breaks and paying lower taxes than the school teachers and the bus drivers. But the overwhelming majority of the 1% are not getting any government bailout money. They don't work on Wall Street. They're not getting any special tax breaks. In fact, they're paying a huge percentage of their income in taxes. They're the ones that are building this economy.
Let me interrupt you there for a moment, because after all, it is called Occupy Wall Street, right? And a lot of people out there have come out and said that perhaps this 99% versus 1% dynamic, those figures don't necessarily add up perfectly, but they're catchy, right? They work for the movement. But if you think about what this is fundamentally about, it's about the fact that the bankers got bailed out on Wall Street. The Wall Street got bailed out, that the government acted like this was such an immediate concern that needed to be handled. And yet when it comes to the rest of the population, if you want to talk about the jobs crisis, well, apparently that doesn't seem like an immediate concern to them, because Americans just don't put as much money into campaigns.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm right with the Occupy Wall Street movement. There should have been no bailouts, but I don't blame the bankers for taking the money. Anybody would take the money if the government offered it to them. The problem is the government. The government shouldn't have bailed them out. So the anger needs to go towards the government. They're the ones that are doing it. It's government policy.
But then do you blame the government for taking the money from the bankers when, JP Morgan or whoever else out there decides to donate a lot of money to their campaigns? I mean, this is the problem, is not that the government is only giving money to the banks, but it's that the banks are giving money right back to the government.
But that's because the government has the power in the first place. They shouldn't have it. If we follow the Constitution, no bankers would give the government any money, because the government wouldn't have any favors to dole out. They wouldn't have the power to regulate the economy. So we've given all this power to Washington. The only solution is to take the power away. The problem is the Occupy Wall Street movement wants to give government even more power, and that's just going to exacerbate the damage.
But why do you think that Occupy Wall Street wants to give the government more power? I think that quite the opposite. They want the government to be what they think that the government should be, which is representative of the people.
No.
Essentially, that's what the Constitution, right? That's the way that our government is set up. It's supposed to represent the people. It's not supposed to represent those that just choose to put millions of dollars into a campaign.
The movement is more of a Marxist, socialist movement. They want the government to redistribute the wealth.
Come on. If they're socialists, then why do they not support the bailouts?
No, well, that's the irony of it. The bailouts are very socialistic. They just want different bailouts. They want the government to take money away from people and give it to the middle class, or give it to the poor, give it to students. They want the money redistributed in a different way. They want the government to take money away and give it out to different special interest groups. See, I don't want the government taking money from anybody and giving it to anybody. I want capitalism. I want free markets. I want, I don't want that kind of a central government planning. They don't really see the hypocrisy in what they're arguing.
Well, I think that, it's kind of hard to say, use that as a blanket statement to represent all of Occupy Wall Street, right? That's one of the things that has been a major critique, is that they don't necessarily have this unified message as to what they want. And if you look at polls out there, it's not just Occupy Wall Street that thinks that the richest individuals in this country need to pay higher taxes. It's a majority of Americans. So then the majority of Americans, according to you, are socialists. But Occupy Wall Street is not socialist. Come on, let's get to the bottom of this. These people just want a free and a fair society, and it's no longer fair in America.
It depends on how you ask the question. See, most of the people asking those questions don't realize how much taxes wealthy people already pay. I pay about half my income in taxes right now. If I ask the question to most Americans, what percentage of a wealthy person's income should be paid in taxes, it's normally a lot lower than what I'm already paying. So that's really not true. Yes, there are some people that have special tax breaks, but the vast majority of the wealthy do not. In fact, most people today who are paying taxes are paying a much higher percentage of their total income than similarly situated people were paying 30, 40, 50 years ago. And of course, for most of America's history, there was no income tax whatsoever. And what people have to understand is just taxing the rich more is not going to make their lives better. Raising taxes on the rich isn't going to mean
it's what you do with that money, I guess you could say. But no, but let's talk about, Peter, and there are statistics out there that will show you that the people are paying lower taxes than they were in the last 30 years. But let's talk about who gets the biggest breaks, right? The biggest breaks are things like banks on Wall Street. Bank of America paid zero income tax in 2010. Some of the biggest corporations like Exxon or GE, they pay no taxes, and that's what Americans are frustrated about.
Corporations.
But no, but I'm not. But if we're going to make this about Occupy Wall Street and what's it about, and it's not just about people like yourself. It's about what's wrong with the system.
Yeah, well, corporations, remember, they don't pay taxes anyway. They just collect them. Either their customers pay the taxes, their employees pay the taxes, or their shareholders. The corporation doesn't pay it. But the problem is you've got some special tax breaks, like the break for carried interest, where hedge fund managers are taxed at 15% when they're actually working and getting compensated for their labor. I think that's wrong. I think that we should tax everybody equally. I'd rather have, if we're going to have an income tax, let's have everybody pay the same rate. Let's not have a few wealthy individuals pay a lower rate than everybody else. But the vast majority of people, myself included, we are being taxed at the highest possible rate. So, and that is a very significant rate.
But there are a lot of people like yourself included, like the Warren Buffetts out there, like other millionaires and billionaires that we've spoken to on the show that say, tax me more. I want to be taxed more.
But again,
we're running out of time, Peter, and so I just want to go back to something. No, hold on, Peter, listen to me. Peter, no, listen to me. I'm going to play a clip for the audience because you were on Young Turks on Current last night, and Jay cut you off. So I just want to play it real quick and give you an opportunity to respond to that before we go.
So are you saying the bankers are not guilty of this at all? So isn't the problem that the bankers
the vitality of the free market?
Okay.
We don't have the benefits of capitalism anymore because we don't have capitalism. We have a centrally planned socialist economy, and that is why the average American
I'm done with that load of crap.
If we want to change that circumstance,
Peter, I'm done with you.
If we want the middle class,
no, you guys don't get it. I'm done with him. He's done. Move away from him. Okay, bring him down. He won't.
All right, what happened there, Peter?
Well, I couldn't hear a word he was saying. I had a problem with my earpiece. I would have loved to have answered that question. This is the first time I'm actually hearing it.
You were talking, so you were just talking without hearing the question?
Yeah, I couldn't hear him because of my mic. I thought he was silent. Of course, I can't see him. But I got to say something on Warren Buffett. He is lying. Warren Buffett is the largest shareholder of Berkshire Hathaway. He's paying 35% of his income in tax because that's the rate that Berkshire Hathaway is paying. So Warren Buffett earns 99% of his income through Berkshire Hathaway. He only earns a tiny fraction of his income on an individual basis. So all of the taxes that Warren Buffett pays, owning 1/3 of Berkshire Hathaway, he pays through his ownership of that company. So he is paying a lot of money in taxes. He is lying. This is just pure propaganda coming from Warren Buffett.
Well, you can say, you can say that you think it's propaganda coming from Warren Buffett, but the fact is, Peter, is that he's not the only one out there that is saying that and that is saying tax anymore. And I have to wrap it up, Peter, but we'll catch up again. We'll catch up again.
People do not want to pay higher taxes. That is crazy. You can probably get a handful.
There's a whole bunch of them out there. Like I said, we've spoken to some on the show, but Peter, I really do. I got to wrap it. Thanks for joining us tonight.
99.9% of the people in the upper brackets do not want to pay more taxes. Nobody wants to pay more taxes.
All right. Good night, Peter. Thank you.
Sure.